5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast in partnership with Kidney Care UK, sharing faith, knowledge, hope, and love.
Hi, and welcome to Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. My name is Dee Moore, and I am a kidney warrior. This podcast is dedicated to encourage, educate, and inspire as we explore all aspects of kidney disease, related chronic illnesses, and health. If you have any questions or ideas for topics you would like me to cover, please get in contact with me on social media using the handle Diary of a Kidney Warrior. In this special episode released ahead of World Kidney Day on the 13th of March, my guest today from London, England is Benjamin Hoyte. Benjamin is a devoted husband, proud of his Bajan heritage, a minister, and a passionate advocate for kidney disease awareness. Benjamin's story is one of resilience, faith, and the power of hope in the face of life-changing challenges. From a shocking health discovery to a life-saving call that changed everything. His journey will inspire and encourage you. As we shine a spotlight on World Kidney Day, this is a conversation you won't want to miss. Hi, and welcome to Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. How are you doing today, Benjamin?
I am really well. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm really excited about our interview today. And everyone knows what I'm about to say because I say it every time, but I do sincerely mean it when I say I love recording Kidney Warrior story interviews because why? It's so powerful to learn from someone's lived experience with CKD. So yes, I'm doubly excited today because getting to meet you, I feel like I've gained a little brother. It's been really, really nice getting to know you. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to this too.
Without further ado, I'm going to ask my first question. And my first question is, how did your kidney warrior journey begin and how were you diagnosed?
Well, my kidney warrior journey began, I think it was the year of the pandemic in 2020. Just before the pandemic, I had chosen to fly to Barbados to visit some family and kind of like just reset and have some time and recalibrate, all that kind of good stuff. Barbados is my happy place. So whenever I need a bit of relaxation and recharging and reconnecting to the land of, my heritage, that's usually where I kind of go. And whilst I was there, it was one day I was with my cousin, who's like my brother, and he tested his blood pressure. And I was like, let me just test mine just to see like what's going on. Tested mine and mine was like 200 and something over like 100 and something.
Whoa.
It was like crazy. And I just remember
Wow.
my looking at me and being like, are you okay? Like, do you not feel sick? She obviously didn't say it like that. She said it in her Bajan accent, but she was like, you didn't feel good. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, I just have like a slight headache or whatever. And she was like, yeah, you need to go to the doctors immediately. So I went to the doctors and the doctor was actually one of my friends. And he was like, okay, so I'm going to put you on some blood pressure medicine. And I was like, no, please don't. Because, like once you're on the BP medicine, you don't really come off and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, like just do me a favor. Let me change my eating habits. Let me lose some weight. Let me do some other things, some alternative remedies and methods to, regulate the blood pressure. And let's see what would happen. Because from his understanding, it looked like that was the reason for why, the kidney function had been kind of failing and going down. And I did all of that, lost some weight, came back to England and was fine. In the process of coming back to England and coming back into society, I say society because I was away for like 6 months, my stepmom took sick. And long story short, overnight, she too ended up on dialysis. And in the process of kind of caring for her and supporting my father in her journey, I went back to the doctors because I was feeling very lethargic. And it's at that point in the early January of 2021 that I found out that my kidney function was at something like 40% or something like that. At that point, they referred me straight to the renal assessment unit at Royal London. And I was under their care going back regularly every 2 to 3 weeks. And then from then onwards, straight down to September, it dropped to 6. And then I got the diagnosis that, yes, they were going to start preparing me for dialysis. So that was a little round the tour journey from being in Barbados, having fun and amazement, to coming back to London, dealing with my stepmother, and then receiving my own diagnosis literally like 2 months later.
So rewinding slightly, when they told you that your kidneys were at 40%, did you have an understanding that that was kidney disease? What was going through your mind at the time?
Do you know what? I think if I'm entirely honest, it didn't really make sense, because in my mind, I was like, okay, it's 40%. We're doing all these kind of things of going on bisoprolol, for example, to control the blood pressure. It still didn't register for me, even having just experienced what I experienced with my stepmother. I don't think they explicitly sat me down and were like, okay, so if we don't get this under control, you're going to end up on dialysis. It still didn't make sense. And I think it was a very grey area. I don't think that they did enough in pastoral care and walking through what the process looks like. And I didn't preempt it. I don't think I actually sat down and thought, oh my goodness, it's at 40%. If this reduces anymore, I'm going to end up on dialysis. It wasn't a thought. It really was not a thought. And I don't think my hand was held, or I was given that space to clearly and explicitly know, like, these are next steps.
So with everything that you saw your stepmother going through, with her kidney function declining and her ending up on dialysis, were you so focused on her journey that you kind of forgot your own?
I did. And I think what was the highlight for me of all that was the up and down and the dealing with her and supporting my dad as well. So I'm an only child. So it literally was just me and dad. And if I'm entirely honest, I don't think my dad was dealing with it too well. So I was at the forefront. So in the process of managing the home, making sure that dad was okay, making sure that she was okay, I let myself slip. But it's very interesting because I remember a cousin of mine told me from the beginning, when you're looking after a parent, make sure you look after yourself, because it's in those times that you slip. And so said, so done. And that's then when I realized, after the not sleeping properly and tired and headaches and weird metallic taste in my mouth. And that's then when I mentioned it to my mum. I said to my mum, I was like, Mum, I don't feel really well. And she was like, go and get a blood test to find out what's going on. And I always remember delaying it, because I think I got when you go for a blood test, you usually get the stickers or the slip. I got the slip in the December and really didn't go for the blood test until like the ending of like January. Like I remember it being in my cubbyhole in the car for so long. And then one day I was like, okay, you've let this go for long enough. You need to kind of get it together.
Why did you delay it for that time?
I absolutely have no idea. I think I'll put it down to laziness, pure laziness. I can't say that I knew or felt that something was going to happen, so I was a little bit apprehensive. I think more for me, it was at that time as well, I was also working. I was working full time. It was just, when am I going to get the time to book this blood test at a time that's convenient for me? And it just really didn't fit in with my schedule. And looking back, I think that's one thing that we need to do, is we need to make the time for things that are important, like health, because you can't get it back. Like, you need to invest in yourself and make sure that you are getting your MOTs regularly. I sometimes do think if I had gone that little bit earlier and did what I needed to, would that have made a difference? I'll never know. But I think there is something in there about when you have the opportunity to go and do it, don't delay. Definitely don't delay.
So after hearing that your kidney function had decreased to 6% and you were going to now have to start dialysis yourself, what was going through your mind at that time?
Goodness. I remember when I got the diagnosis, I had gone to Royal London, and for all of my appointments, my mother came with me. And that particular appointment, something in me was a little bit off. Like, I was like, okay, so why have they called me? And I remember that when I got the diagnosis, I literally burst into tears, because that was when the penny dropped. At that moment, it hadn't dropped before. It hadn't dropped in all the other methods of trying to level it out. It dropped in that moment. And I just remember sobbing. And I literally, the word that came to me was like, my life is over. Like I thought life was over. I thought that I'd never get married. I thought I'd never have children. And then I think a very weird sensation of guilt came over. Like, did I do something to cause this? Was there something that I could have done better? I started to get angry at myself. I'm a Christian. I started to get angry at God and be like, what have I done to deserve this? I'm only 27. I haven't lived life yet. There's so much more to life. I felt like I was owed so much more. And I felt like in that split second of the nurse telling me that, it was all snatched away. It was a very weird feeling. There was literally no joy and no hope. And that's very strange for a Christian to say. There was nothing there that I could hold on to except that I'm finished. It's over. Like, I'm going to die. It sounds so dramatic, but it literally is how I felt. Like, yeah, it's over. My life is over. I'm finished.
So from those feelings of fear and despair and anger, what helped you come to terms with the diagnosis?
I think having a moment of reflection and really understanding that it wasn't the end. There was a transition period when I really started to look at my experience differently from a lens. So it was not, why is this happening to me? It was, what am I learning through this situation? What is being taught to me? And I think that transition of looking at it through a different lens really, really, really helped. And I also made a declaration and a statement over my life. And I said, this will not define me. I said, I'm still going to live. I'm still going to do what I need to do. It's very important to note that when you're going through hardships of any kind, health issues, your mindset is one of the most powerful tools you can use to ensure that you will be okay. Mindset is everything. So I made a decision in a moment. One day in my bedroom, I was like, I'm not going to allow this to take over my life. I'm not going to allow it to shape my life. I'm going to shape it and I'm going to do what I need to do. And that alone changed the trajectory of how I managed the journey, because I did some amazing things whilst on my journey.
I agree 1000%. Mindset is vital when it comes to this journey. For me, the turning point in terms of my mindset was when my health coach, Maxine, she said to me, Dee, you need to choose to live. And I want you to say those words, I choose to live. And when I eventually, reluctantly said those words and then kept repeating them until I was shouting the words, I choose to live, at the top of my voice, that is the turning point for me. By no means am I saying, oh, you just have to have a positive attitude and everything will be okay. No, not at all. But I really do believe that the body does follow the mind. I really do believe if you give up in your mind, that it's all over. And yeah, I 1000% agree that mindset is so powerful. And just to encourage anybody out there listening, please choose to live.
I think that is so true. I think we have a very, very powerful mind and a very powerful tongue. And I think what we speak over ourselves eventually does come to pass. So making that decision, saying, I choose to live, it says, I choose to live no matter what comes my way. I choose to live no whatever said to me. I choose to live no matter what my circumstances and my experiences around me look like. I speak this and I will live. I will come through this. It may not look or feel like what I want it to look like, but even in the midst of that, I'm still living and I'm still here. So I think that is very, very important. And I think what you said emulated my journey. It really does emulate my journey.
So were you then given the option of hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis, or did you have to immediately start on hemo?
So it was a funny situation for me, because when they diagnosed me, they were really hoping that I would have been able to have a direct transplant from a donor in my family or my friendship circle. So what they were trying to do in that November was delay me starting dialysis as long as they could, so that there would be a kind of more or less like a swap without me having to start dialysis. So, but what happened was during that time, my symptoms, because my kidney function was so low, began to show up even stronger. The taste in my mouth was horrendous. The headaches, the tiredness, the dizziness, the sensation in my stomach. Oh my goodness. I have not experienced anything like it. It was horrible. Then I used to have these really weird sensations in my body where it'd feel like my body was shutting down. And I remember on 2 occasions going to the A&E. It was like I was in crisis. And I would literally remember being in the A&E, and I can laugh about it now, but it was no laughing matter then. I literally was in that space at the moment telling them, you need to put me on dialysis right now. Like, I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know how you're going to do it, but you need to put me on dialysis. Like, get me on dialysis right now. And I remember that one time in A&E, I was so fortunate to see my consultant, and I said, Dr. Shajida, you need to get me on dialysis now. And she said to me, okay, what do you want? I said, I want to go on hemodialysis because I do not want nothing in my house. I want to go to the hospital and come back home and leave it as it is. I want to know my home is my home and the hospital is my hospital. And that is exactly what I did. And in that moment of being in A&E, she then arranged for me to have the line put in and then sorted out everything after that so I could start my dialysis. So it wasn't until that moment of being in A&E when I met my consultant by pure chance and had the conversation with her. And that's when we decided in that moment to have hemo. Having said that, I saw my stepmother on PD and I did not like it. I got all the training from Baxter on the machine with the beeping and the wires. You know, when you're connected, you can still go to the loo, all of that in the house. The deliveries, oh my goodness, when your house would turn into a hospital with Baxter stuff from the top, from the liquid right down to the dressings, to the saline, to the scissors, to the clamps, everything. Like I can remember it clear as day. Your house turns into a satellite unit, like literally. And I was like, I don't want that. So that was one of the things that drove me to say, I want my hemodialysis. Let me go for my 3.5 hours. I'm going there and I'm going to be done. And then I'm going to come home.
So how was hemodialysis for you?
Do you know what? I remember the first time I had it and I began to cry. And I cried because I fully understood in that moment that even though the kidneys had failed, this was my opportunity to live. This was my opportunity to still continue in life. And that machine is what was going to keep me going. And it was scary at first because I was like, okay, so this thing's taking out my blood and going to put it back in. How do I even know or trust what this machine's even doing? Is this machine going to malfunction? I remember so many times looking at the machine, and I remember there was one point where I kind of overthought everything. And I started praying over the machine. Started saying, you know, you're not going to cut out. You're going to do what you need to do. You're going to clean my blood and put it back in my body. There's going to be no issues. And every time, I kid you not, I went in there and I declared over the machine that you will work and you will clean my blood and I will be fine. And it was a beautiful experience. At that time, of course, you go through your episodes of where they take off too much fluid and then you end out, crashing. There were times where it felt like my body, I absolutely could lie down there and feel the blood draining from me. Like, you sit down there and because of the line, you feel it going out and then you feel it coming back in colder than it left. It was a very eye-opening experience. I think stuff like dialysis and chemotherapy are really, really heavy duty things that really show you the importance and the weight of what good health feels like, because you don't have to do those things. They really show you what health is in that moment. But I would say that overall, I had a relatively smooth and very good dialysis experience, even to the point where I fought for a very long time to the very end not to have a fistula. Now, I'm not advocating for anybody to do that. Please do not do that. But I managed to keep my line for the 2 years that I was in dialysis because I said I can't do the needles. And I did. I really, really did. By the grace of God, I really did.
2 years is an incredibly long time to have a line. And that is quite an achievement. I mean, speaking as somebody who has a line themselves, that's really, really well done. During that time, did you have any infections in the line? Did you have any complications or problems with the line?
I literally had complications with the line at the last hurdle, literally like 3 months before I got my transplant. I had been on holiday in Barbados again. And one of the parts of me living was that I chose to go on holiday and dialyze. So I did Barbados twice on dialysis, and it was a beautiful experience. But the last one before my transplant, my goodness, it was the day that I was due to travel back to London. I realized that my line had a hole in it. And when they were dialyzing me, it was leaking. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get on the flight.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was scary. They didn't know what to do. And I was adamant. I was like, I am not going to hospital in Barbados. That is a big fat no. It is not happening. So I was like, Lord, you need to do something. And I managed to dialyze for about 3 hours instead of the 4 hours. And I said, okay, because it started to feel very uncomfortable. And I said, that's it. And I managed to get back here and go to A&E, and then they rectified the line. They made it a little bit shorter, and then they rectified it. And then that shorter line lasted me the next 3 months until I got the phone call.
Wow. Okay. So I have to ask this question. Why did you not want to be in hospital when you were in Barbados?
Oh. So if there's any Bajans or Barbadians listening to the podcast, you would completely understand why I would not want to be in hospital in Barbados. The wait time alone for A&E is a minimum of 2 to 3 days. 24 hours.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. Anything between 48 to 72 hours to be seen. Yeah. So that was instantly a big fat juicy no. It just was
Completely understandable.
Completely. So in my mind, I was like, Lord, it's just not happening.
So for anyone listening that has a line, what advice do you have for them in terms of taking care of their line? Because you had your line for 2 years, so you looked after yours really, really well. I know the complications started at the very end, but let's face it, you had your line for a very long time. So I'm looking at you as a line expert, so to speak. What advice do you have for line care?
My first thing would be to tell you, I know they like to change the dressing on the line every week, but I changed mine almost every other day. And here's what I did. I learned what they were doing. One of the best things you can do when you're on dialysis is be very observant. Do not leave everything and anything to your nurses or your doctor. Learn. I learned how they cleaned it with the lollipop. I learned how they applied the dressing. I learned what dressing was good for my skin. I learned what dressing wasn't good for my skin. And this is what I did. I went to dialysis and I used to slowly collect. I would collect the wipes. I would collect the dressing. My wife would tell you that when the time came for us to empty out my dialysis drawer, I had dressings upon dressings. I had bought my own gloves. I had everything that meant that if anything happened to my dressing at home, I didn't need to go to A&E and I didn't need to go back to the unit. So I made sure that every time it started lifting, okay, fine, in the bin, dressings. I had dressings in my bag. I had lollipops in my bag. I had dressings in my car. I had lollipops in my car. I just made sure that I was on top of my line kit. The slightest itch, the dressing's coming off and I'm cleaning it with a lollipop. I think don't wait Monday to Monday, because in my unit, they used to change dressings on Monday. When they came to me on Monday, I had already put a fresh one on from the time I showered that morning. They were like, oh, we don't need to change the dressing. No, I've taken the initiative to change it myself because I knew that I did not want a fistula. That was in my back of my head. So I knew I had to do everything in my power to ensure that my line was clean. So I learned what they were doing and I made sure to have my products at home to ensure that I was well prepared for whatever eventuality came.
A man with a plan. I really do like that because like you said, Benjamin, when the dressing peels off and the line and everything is exposed, that is when the problems start. So I completely agree. It's so important to take initiative, to be on top of your line care, because I've heard that there's some units where they will only change the dressing once a week. And I've been told by people that sometimes their dressing is peeling off with massive gaps. And what I'm saying is, don't feel any way about being assertive. Ask for the dressing to be changed, because I'm somebody who's very careful, and yet I still ended up with sepsis. Sepsis is very serious, so stay on top of it. And like you said, shared care is an option. So learn as much as you can. Do as much for yourself as you can. Or not everybody is comfortable with doing every part of their dialysis session themselves. But when it comes to your line, please learn as much as possible to keep yourself safe. So you were on dialysis for 2 years in total, and you got the call. So tell me about that time period and the day that you got the call.
Well, I'm going to backtrack to just about a week before the call, because I think it's really important to contextualize everything. A week before the call, I had actually gotten married. My wife and I had said I do in a very small and intimate family-only ceremony, with the intention of having a larger ceremony 2 weeks later. So we'd gotten married on the Saturday, the 4th of November. And then we had gone out with my best friend and his wife. We were at a gospel concert in Camden, and we were having a great time. And I remember I was sitting down and my phone was vibrating profusely. And I was like, who is calling me at 9 o'clock at night? Like, this is not my MO, please. And then I went outside to look at the phone, and I saw approximately, I kid you not, about 7 missed calls. So I was like, have I won the lottery? Like, why is someone calling me? It's a Sunday though. Did they call on a Sunday? Something's going on. And it was almost as if, like, as soon as I saw the number, I just realized, I was like, oh my goodness, this is it. So there were 2 sets of numbers. There was a mobile and there was an 0208 number. And I said, let me phone the mobile. I phoned the mobile, and it was this Spanish lady. And she just said, she's like, hello. And I was like, oh, hello, this is Benjamin Hoyte calling. I just got a missed call from this number. And she was like, oh, hello. I am Dr. So-and-so from the renal unit at Royal London. And I've called to say that I've got your kidney. And her exact words were, it is a perfect kidney. You could not ask for a better kidney. In that moment, my wife was saying I'm very dramatic, but in that moment, and just thinking about it, I get emotional. I began to process and think, my goodness, God, I have really, really, really done it. Like I've got there. And she said to me, I would not want any other kidney. And then she said to me, I have the option of accepting it or declining it. And I was like, decline? No. We're not declining. I said, okay. I said, what do you need from me? She goes, can you get to the hospital within the next 3 hours? And I put down the phone, and I remember I stood in the place that I was, which was like the foyer of Coco. If anybody knows Coco in Camden, it was a foyer on the second mezzanine level. And I started to hyperventilate. I started to grasp for air. That it was very strange. Everybody was looking at me, but no one was coming to my rescue. So I was like, and I remember walking back through the kind of the foyer, because the foyer goes underneath the upper level. So you walk through like a tunnel, go through the tunnel, keeled over, shouting for my wife and my best friend, but couldn't get the words out. Now, when they saw me, they assumed somebody had died. They really did. I'm like, what's happened? Who's dead? And I was like, I just got a call from the hospital. I got a kidney. And I literally, after I said kidney, burst into tears and fell to the ground in pure dramatic form, as I would do. And it was like, in that moment, everything that I had worried about in my marriage, about being a good husband, being a father, everything in that moment just disappeared like smoke. I was like, my goodness, I just got married. And a week later on a Sunday, you have now delivered my kidney. Like, this is crazy.
I can only imagine how elated you all were at that time to hear that news. To get married, to know that you're starting your new married life with a new gift and a new beginning, that is just so amazing. So you got the news, you got to the hospital. What happened next?
So I got the news, got to the hospital. I didn't drive. Side note, I didn't drive. My wife was like, no, you're not driving. I'm going to drive. Got the news, went home, packed, and went to the hospital. Got to the hospital, explained to them who I was, and they escorted me upstairs into another room, in like a waiting room. They brought me 1,000,001 papers to sign. They brought me loads of those yellow sheets to sign. I think I signed about 3 or 4 in case of death, in case of this, in case of that, or whatever. And at that point, again, it started to feel really real. And then I think the most emotional of it all was they gave me the gown to put on, and they gave me some socks, and they told me that I'd be going for my last dialysis. Yeah.
And how did it feel, that last dialysis session, knowing that it was the last time you would have to do it?
Ooh. It was so heavy. I remember my wife was to my right-hand side, and she was rubbing my hand, and she was like, you did it. She's like, you did it, babe. You did it, babe. And everything in that moment just made sense. The journey, the walk, the lessons learned, my growth as a man, my growth as a husband, like everything in that moment just made so much sense. It was incredibly overwhelming. And then there was a surge of guilt again for all my mates in my unit. You know, it was very strange to think that most Fridays you say, yeah, I'll see you on Monday morning, 6:30 for your session. And in that moment, that Sunday, that wasn't a thing. That wasn't a thing. So I started to feel very, very upset about my friends that I'd left behind, and started, I'll be very honest, asking God, what you did for me, please do for them. Yeah. I started to kind of do a little bit of a, forgive me, stand in the gap and think of them in that moment as well. But there was a barrage of moments. There was feelings of joy, feelings of happiness, concerns that I had, like I said earlier, about, what kind of husband will I be? How will I be able to provide? What kind of father will I be? Every concern I put before my wife just disappeared like smoke. Again, it was beautiful. I took pictures. I have pictures of my last dialysis. I have pictures of the whole entire journey just to remember where I've come from. But it was a very surreal feeling. And somehow, although 2 years sounds long, didn't actually feel like 2 years in that moment. Didn't feel like 2 years. But I know that in that last dialysis, I wasn't the man that I was when I went for that first dialysis. I know that much. There had been such a great big change.
So what for you was that change from the first session of dialysis to the last?
Ooh. I'll say life, and the value of life, and the value of having breath in your body. The value that tomorrow is not promised. We grew up in a very West Indian home hearing that they used to say that, but when you walk a pathway of diminishing health, you really know that it's not promised. Things of no value no longer being an issue. Why am I squabbling over that? Why am I dealing with that? Understanding what the real true value is. Being kind, showing love, being nice, living your life to the fullest. You want to bungee jump? Go and bungee jump. You want to go and, buy yourself a gift? Buy yourself a gift. I'm not telling you to be silly, but, life is so fleeting. It just changed my whole outlook in what I do. I live life full of energy now. I live life more sensitively now to the things that I eat, to the things that I do, to the opportunities that come my way, whether it be, work or whether it be contracts that I get, different things. It just made me think differently. It made my faith grow deeper. It made the way that I see the second chance of life differently. I just see me as a tangible experience of a testimony, like a tangible experience of, I think of so many people who haven't got the phone call. I think of people who are waiting for the phone call. So I have to be me and enjoy what I have and not take it lightly, not take it for granted. And the one thing that I will always say to any and everybody when I minister is that your purpose is bigger than death. So as long as you are living, you have a purpose on this earth. And that reminded me of what is it, God, that you brought me through on this journey to fulfill. Things may have happened and slowed me down, but I'm here now. So what is it that I need to do in this season of coming out now as a kidney warrior, as triumphant over kidney failure? What is it now that I'm required to do? So I think that particular sentence of my purpose being bigger than death, my purpose being bigger than being held back by this terrible disease, and what it means now that I have full functionality of my body, what am I doing with it? Am I just sitting down being lazy? Am I just sitting down wasting it? Or am I going to go and study for that next degree? Am I going to go and apply for that job? Am I going to go and do something scary and something crazy? Am I going to go and just be me and not put any limitations on my life?
That is so powerful. And again, your mindset towards that makes all the difference. Being grateful, appreciating the gift that you were given, and the difference it makes to your life is so beautiful to hear and to see. And with that in mind, after receiving that gift of a new kidney, what difference has receiving that kidney made physically to your life?
Oh my goodness. It's made such a difference. If I talk about energy in its actual form of energy and capacity to do, and not even also the freeness of time because you're no longer physically on dialysis, but this kidney has given me a new lease of life. Today, as we record, this week has been something extraordinary. I have been up and down. I have been traveling backwards and forwards across the country. I literally only came back to my home early hours this morning, around 1 o'clock after leaving my house on Tuesday, being away for one night, coming back Thursday, being away again for another 2 nights, and then coming back. That would have never been a thing on dialysis. Not just because of time or because of energy and capacity. I probably would have passed out by now. Just newness. It's going to sound very crazy, but every time I urinate, that is a tangible expression of what I went through. It's a reminder that my kidney is working. I think sometimes we forget the small things, like whilst being on dialysis, like not being able to urinate as often. But that for me is a reminder of like what it's done. It's a reminder for me when I get a report from the doctor and I look at my GFR is now 58, when the doctor's already predicted that it'd only stop and plateau at 50. It's a reminder when I look at my creatinine levels being 110 when they used to be in the thousands. Like, it is just incredible. And I think, especially being a person of Caribbean descent, it encourages me to change my outlook on being a donor, number one. And just because someone said yes, now I can live. I think it impacted me how I even see the importance of your yes. Your yes can change the trajectory of someone's life. I'm thankful to that family of the young person that gave me my kidney. I'm now in a position now to have a family of my own and be a good husband. Like, those are really important things. All the desires of my heart that I thought would have been prohibited by being on dialysis are now no longer a thing. And it's different for everybody. Let me clarify. It's different for everybody. But for me in particular, at the age where life hadn't begun to be what it was. So this kidney has given me all of that. Like, my life is encapsulated in this kidney. And there's a song that says, all the earth will shout your praise. And I say, this kidney will shout your praise. That's what I change the lyrics, and I say, it's your breath in my lungs. So this kidney pours out a praise. That's what I say. So it's a living testimony to what somebody's saying yes, somebody's sacrifice, enabling me to live a life of freedom, to live a life of beautiful expectancy now, not being weary, not having to worry simply because someone said yes. So it's a tangible reminder. It's just given me like life in itself. Like I can't fully encapsulate it. It's weird because there's just one action, that one moment, that one signature changed the trajectory of my life.
With World Kidney Day approaching on the 13th of March 2025, I really believe that you're in an ideal position to encourage somebody who might be undecided about becoming a donor. Please, could you share your thoughts on why it's important?
I think it's as simple as just being the person that has the opportunity to do something life-changing. I think sometimes we think of things life-changing as giving money. We think of things of being life-changing as something of greater insignificance. But what greater thing could you do to help somebody carry on their life? It sounds so strange, but really and truthfully, if you keep it, what are you going to do with it? If someone else can have that extra piece of life, that extra dose of vitality, that change, can have an added extra 30 to 40 years. That's what my doctor predicted, that this kidney would give me another 30 to 40 years. I predict that it will give me more. But can you imagine simply by your yes? There is so much power in your yes, in your deciding to say, you know what, when my time has come, I choose to donate this. You are giving birth to generations. You are giving birth to visions. You're giving birth to dreams being manifested simply through your yes. I know it sounds very preachy, but forgive me. But you are the pathway. You are the gateway into someone reaching their full potential and reaching their purpose. Could you imagine going to bed at night and just realizing that potential and that opportunity lies within an organ in your body? That is what you have the power and the potential to do, to give someone a second chance at life, a second shot at life. So I would encourage any and everybody, if you can, by all means, please do. You don't really know the impact, because I guess we don't necessarily share the ins and outs in full depth. And I guess there's not always platforms like this that you have as well, Dee, to share. But I could go on for years. I could speak till my last breath, and tell you of what a beauty it is, simply because one young man who was 19 years old decided to sign up and say, I'm going to donate my kidney. And the reality of it is that he had two kidneys. So one came to me and one went to someone else. So he saved two lives. And because of that kidney now, I'm now able to produce a generation of my own. That other person will be able to do that of their own. And then a generation will come from that generation, all because of one yes. So there is so much weight in your yes. There's so much weight in you agreeing to this that you actually couldn't physically understand sometimes what it means for you to sacrifice that or just give that, because it's a gift. Life is a gift, and you're able to add to that gift. So I would encourage anybody on the fence or anybody thinking about it, hear my story of how I almost thought I lost it all. Hear the transition to me thinking my life was over to now my life is worth living. Like my life has purpose, simply because of that transition somewhere along the line of 2 years. Somewhere someone had a conversation, somewhere someone had a thought process and said, you know what, let me give my kidneys should I die. And this is the reason why you're hearing my voice, because someone said, yes, I will donate my kidneys to some person should they need it.
As a young married man, what advice do you have for a young married kidney warrior who's listening?
Ooh. My advice would be to you to enjoy it. Enjoy it. Enjoy every moment. Enjoy every ounce of laughter. Enjoy every ounce of crying, because at some point on your journey, this was not a thing, but you are now in the reality of things you desired and dreamed of. Enjoy it. Share your journey. Be honest and open with your feelings. I remember just before I got the kidney, I used to tell my wife at the time, I'm so envious of whoever has a working kidney. Be honest. And she used to console me and say to me, it's not always going to be like that. One of the most beautiful things that you can do when you're married is communicate and express your feelings. Have a safe space as a kidney warrior. Have a safe space as a man in general, even outside of, your health issues. Have a safe space with your spouse to share your feelings. I think this world sometimes creates a battle between husband and wife when the reality of it is that you are on the same team. So my deepest advice to you would be to enjoy life, enjoy your union. You have an opportunity that many would literally die for, would really desire for. So with this new kidney that you have, or the kidney that is on its way, live it to the fullest. Enjoy your union. Enjoy what you have desired, living in the fruits of what you've desired for. I think it is a beautiful thing to get married, but it's an even more beautiful thing to walk the journey with someone who understood what it was like when you were on dialysis and when you were off dialysis. I think this would be a great time to share that I had many a reservation about sharing with my then girlfriend at the time my diagnosis. I was embarrassed. But you know what she told me? She told me that she would marry me over again and she'd do it all over again. So you never know the beauty that you get and the encouragement you get in your sharing. So share and be encouraged that you now can live your life to the fullest with both your wife or your husband and your wonderful working kidney. So enjoy it to the max. Seize every opportunity. Take every advantage of what life gives you. Buy the new car. Buy the house. Go on holiday. Have an amazing time with your wife or your husband. Date nights, all of that. And be thankful that you are now in the desires that you once dreamt of.
I know that you're very active on social media. So for anyone who wants to follow you, what are your handles?
Well, I'm only on Instagram at the moment and my handle is at BJ Hoyte, and that's Hoyte, and that's where you will find me.
So as always, I will put the link to Benjamin's social media in the description box. So please do give Benjamin a follow. So today we've spoken about your story, how you got diagnosed, dialysis, marriage. We've covered line care and other words of encouragement. But I can't end without being even more greedy and asking for even more because I just feel so encouraged by what you've said so far. But I need even more. And so my final question is, what is your final word of encouragement for the listeners?
Final word for the listeners is that to everything there is a season. As West Indians, we always say day runs until night catches it, meaning that a day must always come to an end. So the season that you're in of being on dialysis and it being heavy and burdened will come to an end. You will get your transplant. You will get your transplant. You will get your dream. You will get the desires of your heart. Hang in there. And my other thing, just because, you know what? It helped me through my own journey. Stay encouraged. Stay encouraged and keep your eye on the prize. And the prize is life. You have it and you will have more of it. So hold on and stay encouraged.
Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for the wonderful encouragement and advice that you've shared today. I know that this will help so many people out there. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you for having me. Really, really appreciate my time with you.
Thank you for listening to Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. And don't forget that you can contact me on social media using the handle Diary of a Kidney Warrior. Please do subscribe to the podcast and please do tell a friend. New episodes of this podcast are released every other Monday. Until next time, take care and choose to live.
Diary of a Kidney Warrior, sharing faith, knowledge, hope, and love.